All right, this video is for Module 38 on productivity and growth. This particular module is focusing on kind of a visual representation of how productivity is impacted by those three things that cause economic growth. So increases in physical capital, human capital, and technology. So the first thing is that we have what we call an aggregate production function. And this illustrates how productivity is changing because of one of those three things. So physical capital, just a reminder of, from our last video, physical capital like a tractor, human capital like education, and technology like our lovely little, add-on square, right? When we look at the aggregated production function, what we will find is there is what we call diminishing returns. And diminishing returns is this idea that when only one factor increases and all the others are held constant, it's going to cause smaller increases in productivity over time. What I mean by that, I'll give you for instance. So the best example was the activity that I did in class. So the activity I did in class was where each group was given a different set of resources, and they had each a different number of people, but they were told to make paper airplanes and paper chains, those chain links that you sometimes did when you were a kid to count down to like Christmas. So they were given a certain amount of time. Well, some of the groups, for example, were given scissors to be able to cut the strips for the paper chain. Some of them were given staplers and tape, and some of them were given very little. For example, I had at least one group in every class that was not given a pair of scissors at all. Okay? So here's my reasoning for explaining this, is that if I went and increased the amount of physical capital. So let's say I gave them a pair of scissors. What would happen to their productivity? Well, their productivity would skyrocket. They would go up because then they wouldn't have to be tearing the paper. They could cut the paper a lot faster, right? Well, what if I gave them 2 pairs of scissors, 3 pairs of scissors, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 pairs of scissors? What would happen to their productivity? Well, eventually what would happen if I changed nothing else? What would happen is that I'd get to the point where I had, they would have so many scissors that it wouldn't make a difference. It wouldn't affect their productivity. So the reason I say this, and I gave this as an example, is kind of to explain what happens to our aggregate production function. So to draw this, first of all, our axes are labeled real GDP per worker. So this is basically real GDP per capita. And then physical capital per worker. So, how much stuff, like for example, scissors do they have? So as you increase the number of physical capital, so the amount of scissors that I'm giving them, you would expect that their productivity and their real GDP would increase. But like I said, what happens is that we kind of hit this plateau. So our productivity is actually kind of increasing and then it kind of levels off. Because like I said, you give one group 10 pairs of scissors, and if there's only 4 people in the group, they're not going to have anything to do with all of those scissors, right? By the way, just as a side note, it is very difficult to draw. One of the caveats and problems of using a computer to draw graphs, it's very difficult to draw a curved line. Ignore this little tail end here. I couldn't get rid of it. So productivity is just kind of, this is our aggregate production function, where it's going to increase rapidly in the beginning and then it's going to level off. So what happens? Well, we can see economic growth. So when we see economic growth, this is a result, and it's going to shift our aggregate production function up due to changes in technology. So instead of it being this red line, maybe we'll shift it up to the blue line. Okay? This is going to be a result of technology. Remember, technology is going to be something that we don't already have. So in my example in class, when they were making paper airplanes and paper chains, imagine, if you will, a newfangled thing that will go and cut a lot of paper at once. I think I will call it a paper cutter. Now, obviously, a paper cutter is already in existence, but imagine it wasn't. Okay, that would be our change in technology. It would shift it from the red line to the blue line. So, growth accounting will determine how much of physical capital and human capital are added to the growth production function. So meaning if we're moving along this curve here, how much of this is a result of changes in physical capital, how much of it is a result of changes in human capital. So that's generally going to be moving along this original curve. Now, so changes in physical capital and human capital. So now, growth in technology is determined by changes not attributed to the physical and human capital. So what happens is that real GDP went up by more than what can be accounted for with the changes in my physical capital and the changes in training. So this is going to be where we're not just going from one point on our red line to another point on our red line. We're actually moving and shifting the curve up to that blue line. And so this is a result, like I said, of technological things. And so the total factor productivity shows this output increasing due to technology changes. And so for the most part, over the course of time, a lot and most of our economic growth, economists will argue, is a result of technological changes. Keep in mind that technological changes is more than just, for example, computers, okay? So this is the aggregate production function. This is the big thing that I wanted to talk about here. Let me know if you have any questions about it.